and welcome back to Meet the Mayor. Larry Petraccaro here with Frank McGehee. Before the break, we were talking about public safety committee. So I'd like to continue on that just a little bit, if we may, Frank. You were mentioning that the vast majority of car break-ins are as a result of people leaving the car fob in the car. Just instead of taking it in the house, or instead of locking the doors, just forgetfulness, I guess. Does that, before we get on to something else, does that result in a lot of car thefts, or they don't bother stealing the car even though the car fob is there? They just take something in the car? Or?
Yeah, Larry, it's a little bit of both. Some of them,
Okay.
it's a little bit of, they'll open the car and grab something, that belongings in there, probably some electronics, if you will, something that can be flipped over really quick or resold, if you will. Or some of them will go for a little joyride and go a little bit, and then they'll leave the car somewhere locally in a town nearby. So it's a combination of both. But the big deterrent is that and I know it's difficult because now with the technology, you press a lot of these cars, and I get it. But if we just take that extra second, and you have groceries and going on, but if you could just take an extra second, just hit that click button, then that'll help mitigate a lot of this. And we're very, knock on wood, we're very fortunate that that our town is, these are the biggest challenges we have. I'm not saying that we don't have other little challenges that pop up here and there, but these are the biggest challenges where we're really focusing on, auto theft and breaking into cars. So it's tough, yeah.
And we started to talk a little bit about with public safety that you were mentioning that the fire department are trained to know the area very well, but you also mentioned at the beginning of the interview that you have whether it's an ordinance or not, but something to make sure that the house numbers and so forth, are visible. Is there any other technology that has been explored that might be useful as well to help people in an emergency situation get to the right location?
Right. So I first want to say that I think that our fire department is one of the best around. There, every firefighter, EMT, knows the map of Maplewood as if it's not their hometown, like it is their hometown. They know the little dead ends and the side streets, and and that's a testimony to the amount of training and development in which they do. The ordinance, the upcoming ordinance I talked about, is a way to help with EMTs and as fire inspectors, anyone, just know a number on a particular street, because they know the streets, but sometimes the numbers can be off, and that's just a way to help enhance what they already know, and also in the case of emergency be there as well. From a technology perspective, from the fire department, and both fire and police, we leverage technology heavily. Our fire department has a very robust system where they're able to keep the logistics of where they go and the times and the calls, and they document everything. It's pretty impressive, and that's where these reports get piled out of that as well. And in terms of the radios they use a very sophisticated radio. So if they're in a basement, for example, at a commercial property, then these radios will let them know that now no one can hear them. They'll start to give them signals and stuff. So, and then also just recently, we're interested in improving them, purchasing some types of jaws of life for cars, so that they don't have to plug it into a power source. Now it'll be it's electronic, it's wireless. So these things save lives. This technology saves the lives of our firefighters, it saves the lives of our residents if need be. And so they definitely leverage it too. And and our police have technology they use as well, either in their vehicles or or established around town to keep us safe, or leverage when necessary.
We had this goes back a couple of years, but we had an incident, if you want to call it that, with the police. A very positive. As it turned out, we had some family visiting, and they had a young child who, for whatever reason, decided to dial 911. And as soon as it was picked up, I think he hung up. He was scared. He was a little kid,
Sure.
And we immediately got a call back from the police, which surprised us. And then we commented that nobody here had done that. But then two young women came, two police officers came. Apparently they have to follow up on every 911 call.
That is correct.
And we didn't know that, but they handled themselves so well. We got our nephew down, and he had a little, they it was just, I mean, you don't want to do anything to disrupt what you guys are supposed to do, but I just wanted to compliment you on the police officers at that time. They did a really nice job with dealing with what was, for most of us, would have been just an unfortunate little situation, but they handled it really well. So, yeah, I think there's things that these guys do.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that for a second. I'm glad you brought that up. Is that we have one of the organizational committees we have is the Community Board on Police, and they do a great job of being kind of like a liaison between, say, the police department, the township, and the residents. Kind of think of like a Venn diagram, if you will. But they just did a report out on the force report, the latest information, and in that particular report out, that meeting they had, they talked about, when we as residents, we call 911. We think we see something suspicious, we call 911, and the fact that they have to go out and respond to every 911 call, and a lot of times, it's not a 911, it's more of a 411 or a basic phone line. And they talked about a couple of things. One about, knowing when to call 911, to hand out some literature. And then also, to be frank, is that they also said, sometimes perception and reality are different things. We think you see someone suspicious. I see a, African American male with baggy pants. I'm calling 911. Don't do that. That's not it. You know what I mean? Call 411 or don't call anything. But the point being is knowing what 911 is for. That's a serious situation, and knowing the difference.
That's a good point. I raised this, mentioned this because I just thought it was very complimentary the way that the department acted. But you raised a really interesting point that there's limited amount of resources. No matter how many resources you have, they're still finite, and you want to employ them the best way you can, right?
Absolutely, Larry.
Well, that's good. That's something I think we all need to be cognizant of. You mentioned before about the police department that there's officers and also administrators. Are the administrators also police officers, or are they just civilians? Or
so we have a couple of administrators that are civilians, but everyone else are police officers. It's like a military operation.
So that's what I wondered. Okay.
You have your chief, your deputy chief, your captains, lieutenants, and so forth down. And so a paramilitary is the term I was looking for. So kind of like they run it in that hierarchy, if you will.
Okay.
But we, again, there are people that actually work for the police department, help with it at the back end, the administration as well, which is very important.
Okay. And the fire department is always kind of visible. Usually I'll see them around. Whenever I try to get by downtown, I always wind up going by the fire department, which
Road, right?
It's kind of reassuring, actually,
yeah.
to see them there. But how do you get into the decision when you have to buy new equipment and so forth?
Great question. So from a equipment standpoint, operations perspective, when things are purchased, we go through maintenance. We review what's the life cycle or the lifetime of value or the life of a apparatus. So we have to budget for that. So we're always thinking ahead of time, and so we had kind of like backfill. So it's working really with the chief and the deputy chief and their team of knowing what's coming, what needs to get done. We just greenlit some turnout gear, which is like the gear that the firefighters wear before they put on their jackets and go into into harm's way, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's very important. One of the things that why we thought was important is because if you go on a fire and you get a lot of smoke or there's a lot of carbons and stuff now released in fires, and let's say you get wet or something, and now you get called back out. You need backup turn-up gear because that gear has been compromised and needs to be washed accordingly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the studies have shown that that there's been some issues with cancer related to the lack of having turnout gear or having multiple turnout gear. So we want to make sure that our firefighters are safe in that regard. So
okay.
That's an example.
It's also an example of the kind of things that most of us wouldn't even consider.
No,
that you have to consider.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Let me just move to a slightly different subject, and that's the upcoming census.
Perfect.
What do you guys have to do to?
I'm glad. I was hoping I was going to get a chance to talk about that because that was like my number one thing. So
okay.
The census is coming. It's coming quick. March 12th is going to be the launch of the letters will be distributed to every household in America. We have a complete counts committee. which I'm managing with several residents and some other people of our staff. What we're trying to do now is first raise the awareness. So we've been attending multiple events. We started with the MLK event at Columbia High School on January 20th. We've done several Black History Month events. We'll do some Women's History Month events. This week we sent out correspondence to our clergy. We would like to be at congregations in the next month to present about the census and the importance of the census. We'll be at the train station in mid-March, handing out kind of like a campaign.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, be counted. You know, everyone counts in Maplewood. Be counted. And we'll be also sending out a series of communications, both digital and also offline, DM or direct mail, they say, just to raise the awareness. Then we'll get some reporting. As the census starts going, we'll get weekly reports. We'll start to, we have 5 tracks. So our town's broken into 5 tracks. It's not based off of historical perception where people live. It's just the way our town's carved up. And so we'll get information about where we are in terms of percentage of fulfillment on those tracks. As we get closer, working with the government, we will start to canvass. We'll go out there and canvass those tracks. But one thing we're really focused on this year is we're focused on undercounted populations, immigrants, people of color, English second language, and children. A lot of children don't get counted across the board. And so it's important every child is counted. And thirdly, if someone's living in your house and they're not from your house, let's say they're there for college or whatever, you have to count them as well. So these are the things we're looking at, because this really determines how much federal funding we get for the next 10 years. Not for 1 year, for 10 years. We set that baseline.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to, every person counts, and it results in funding. And also it's going to have impact on how we're represented from a congressional perspective as well.
Yeah, yeah. I remember it wasn't so long ago that this is kind of off target, but Maplewood was divided into 3 separate congressional districts.
Yes, that's correct.
Which absolutely struck me as bizarre,
Right.
among other things. But do we have, Frank, an estimate of what we think the census ought to result in, so that if when we get the official figures, it's more than a couple of percent off, that we have a mechanism to protest? Or
Yeah. Well, we're hoping to be at 25,000.
we expect to be about
Yeah,
25,000.
we are definitely over 24 based on some other data, which resulted in us being able to offer a new liquor license
Sure.
in town. So we just did that recently. So we're expecting to be around 25,000. We will look at the tracks. In 2010, we were at on average 84.4% in terms of the response rate, and some of the tracks were as high as 93%, and one was as low as 74%. So
Okay.
we're going to work on that.
Gonna work on that.
One of the big things we have is on April 4th, we're going to do a parade. We're going to start over by the Wawa on Springfield Avenue, and we're going to march down Jacoby and to Boyden, and then to Newark Way, and then to DeHart Community Center, and have activities and music and food and fun, just to keep people aware of that the census is here and to participate.
Okay. Well, let's hope everyone does get counted. I think we're going to have to kind of end this. Looks like we're just about out of time, but your comment about children being undercounted strikes me as a really important thing to address.
Yes.
So, well, with that, we're going to have to say thank you for joining us on Meet the Mayor, and Frank, thank you so much for taking the time to give us a little bit of insight into how the township works.
Look forward. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.